1996. A fat man named James Ortracus sings his favorite song while taking a school shower. A gang of school bullies grabs a boy and pulls him out of the shower at the same time. In the gym and the same school there is a farewell of students from the educational institution. Local star budding in sports and Kelvin, coach nicknamed the Golden Rocket, makes a fiery speech. The doors of the gym open and a group of guys in their arms drag the fat man, throwing his head on the slippery floor of the basketball court. Now all the attention of the audience has switched to Scolavino on Robbie. Everyone is mocking the fat man, pointing at him with his finger. Calvin holds out his jacket to the boy so that he can cover himself. 20 years after this incident, Calvin works as an ordinary accountant. His career in sports did not work out. Guy is married to Maggie, whom he met during his school years. On Facebook, Calvin receives a notification that soon the evening of the reunion of graduates, which he doesn't really want to go to, hiding a new notice about pros against friends. Calvin sees the name Bob Stone is not familiar in the message that the stranger sends, says that he is the very fat man Robbie, who offers Calvin to meet at the bar and hang out. The guy does not believe his eyes as Robbie has turned from a fat man into a huge kotka who scatters 4 guys in a bar and who decides to run into old friends on the street. Calvin says that this is the coolest evening in his whole life, since his friend killed 4 men alone. Robbie is glad that Calvin considers him his friend, offering to ride a cool motorcycle when he arrives in the school where they studied together a couple of decades ago. The guys are looking at Calvin's showcase, which contains all his awards. Robbie persuades the guy to do his famous school backflip. Already on the porch of his house, Calvin says that if a woman needs his help, he can safely turn to him. Stone immediately asks a friend to spit his salary accounts because he himself does not understand this, but Calvin with his accounting skills figure it out this time. Spit. Calvin considers the incomprehensible. I think that in the end turn out to be bids at some secret auction. He pays attention to the timer that says that the auction is ending after 14 hours. They are trying to figure out what these strange bills are, but Stone accidentally spills beer on the laptop keyboard. Robbie offers to deal with these bills tomorrow and asks Calvin and permission to spend the night with him because they are friends after all. In the morning, Calvin goes to work while Robbie is still sleeping on the threshold. The Rocket meets 3 strangers who pretend to be CIA agents. Showed Calvin a photo of Stone. The sofa on which Stone had just slept is already neatly tucked in, and the thug himself has disappeared somewhere. Pamela Hadith tells Calvin that Stone is a CIA agent who is wanted for the murder of his partner named Phil. Pamela's words: he is tired of secret information that he wants to sell to criminal gangs for which he was beaten by Phila. Not wanting to share with him, Calvin decides to help the CIA agent catch Stone, and the Rocket receives a call to his office from Robbie, who asks him to go downstairs where he will wait for him. Washed listening to the conversation along with the agents runs down when Calvin is left alone in his office. A stone appears which is specially arranged so that the buckaroo ran to look for him on the lower floors. That he asks for help from his friend, but Calvin, considering him a criminal, runs out of the office and starts screaming that Robbie is in his office. When the CIA agents appear, Stone puts Calvin in a wheelchair and jumps out the window with him, falling on a huge inflatable monkey. Stone tells Calvin that he did not actually kill anyone a few weeks ago. A black badger foot stole access keys for spy satellites and is now going to get them sell at auction, so Stone needs and Calvin's help to track the badger. He also wants to get even with the badger for killing his partner Phila in an abandoned hangar where they stop to remove the GPS tracker from the car. They are attacked by a mercenary hired by Pamela. While the mercenary of Stone's distracted, Calvin jumps on a moto and fly to his wife Mickey, who, on the way, makes an appointment with a psychologist whom they were going to go earlier in the parking lot of. Calvin intercepts Harris, who tells the guys that Stone is a black badger and that he killed his partner Phila to cover up the traces of the theft of access codes from satellites. All that was then found from Phila. It was his ear. Washed sure that Calvin needs Stone, so she hands him a GPS beacon that the Rocket should activate as soon as he sees Robbie. Calvin meets with Maggie in the psychologist's office, and instead of which Stone sits after a short session, Maggie leaves the office, leaving Calvin alone with the Psychologist 100. He convinces the Rocket what he not a badger and asks for help to trace a payment transaction at an auction that will put Stone on the trail of a badger. Calvin leads Stone to the financial district where Trevor works, one of those who in the 96th year dragged Robbie's head to a cool Tahira gym and threw it on the floor. A trader can find out the transaction number, so how he holds the post of vice president in an international payments company. Despite the fact that the fat man has turned into a hefty jock of an idle person, Trebor is not at all afraid of him and does not lose the chance to mock these two depressed table. He goes down in an elevator, leaving Calvin, one to whom at that moment the twin Pamela is threatening by arresting Maggie. The Rocket has no choice but to hand over his friend as an agent of Stone. They bring him to a secret base of the seer, where she washed, the woman is torturing, intending to find out where the keys to access the satellites. Kilogram hears Stone's screams and, feeling guilty, rescues the thug in the corridors of the base. Friends encounter agents, scattered them like a bowling pin, and having stolen an SUV, Stone and Calvin leave the base in the car. Stone asks the Rocket to get a super CIA phone by which they will track the buyers, since in fact the transaction number is an encrypted GPS location of the meeting of the buyer and the seller. The transaction is completed in the underground parking in Boston parking building. Stone asks Calvin to stay outside until he goes down a little later. Washed Harris appears here, because of which Calvin decides that she is a black badger without calling Stone. Calvin runs to the parking lot where he finds both and the buyer of the codes. Stone takes out a gun and fires in Calvin, slightly injuring him, since at the moment he is playing the role of a black badger in front of the buyer. Then he holds out a flash drive on which supposedly access codes to satellites, but Phil suddenly appears in the parking lot, which turns out to be a real badger. When Calvin arrives himself, a shootout starts. As he appeared in the parking lot, washes with Calvin's agents manages to pick up both flash drives. The mafia leader notices the same buyer pursues Calvin in a car. The Rocket is saved by Stone by crashing into the leader's Mercedes a second before he almost crushed Calvin. The Rocket rushes to run as the Stone shot at him on the bridge. They catch up with Calvin and Stone, and Phil. A fight breaks out between former partners. Calvin raises an abandoned pistol, making a shot of Stone. Phil hauled the other day with a pistol reveals himself as a badger, faked his death. Phil left with $500 million. Now he wants to shoot Calvin, but he does his famous backflip back down with his muzzle to the ground, distracting Phil. Stone cuts out Phil, tearing out his Adam's apple and throwing him into the river. The thug apologizes to Calvin for the shot, but otherwise the gangsters in the parking lot shot a glass of wine. Friends in a helicopter. Cheru arrives at the school where the reunion is today. Pamela apologizes to a grown for mistaking him for a black badger. Harris P says that if Calvin wants to work as an agent, he can just call her, and if I say if you want to call such, pick up any phone in the house. There are Stone girls back at school where he was always bullied, feels terrible and wants to leave, but they announce the king of the evening who becomes a bully. All it's thanks to Calvin, who hacked the voting results to make Stone the winner. In the audience everyone looks at the table on because they don't recognize him until Trevor reveals that it's Robbie Crooked Trucker bullying Stone. Trevor passes out having risen to the stage. Stone admits that he really is Robbie cool, what he takes off all his clothes, showing what a mountain of muscles he has become. All delighted with this guy that he goes down to the hall, meets the road he was in love with in his school years. Sometime after these events, Calvin goes on his first working day as a CIA agent. He is escorted by a pregnant woman, Maggie, at the car. Stone PR close. Calvin sighs because he has a gift for a friend. The thug returns to Calvin the same jacket that in the 96th year he held out to the naked fat man. On this all, thanks for watching. Put likes, write comments, subscribe.